as the voice of God said, Paul O'Reilly, and I run U.S. Financial Services for Accenture. Pat, I am also disappointed in your comments about us, so thank you, Kurt, for standing up for us. And I run our Columbus office and here in Columbus for Accenture. So without ado, we're going to get started here with our panel. And if you could all just give us a quick introduction and tell us what you do and maybe where you do it from here in the state.
Sure. So I'm Renee Cacillo. I lead Safe Flight Group. We're located off Sawmill. We have about 14,000 associates in our teams across the 50 states. And we do have a really good jingle in case you want to know or you don't have it going through your head right now. Always the advertiser, just like you, Kurt.
Yeah, Nick Barlage. I oversee Dan Gilbert's kind of sports and entertainment portfolio of assets. It's really spread between Detroit and Cleveland. Most of them are based in Cleveland. Our flagships are the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Cleveland Monsters, and the Cleveland Charge, and we have a PGA Tour event, the Rocket Classic.
I'm Kevin King, lead Donato's Pizza. Proud to be Ohio and Columbus born, 61 years old. Over 120 of our restaurants are in the state of Ohio, and thrilled to be a part of this.
And Greg Crawford, the president of Miami University, and I'll be starting my 10th year this July, so very exciting times. I returned to Ohio after a stint in different places around the country and the world, and so was just happy to come back. And we do a lot at Miami, and the sort of big emphasis on the past few years has been around clinical health sciences, data sciences, quantum computing, entrepreneurship, and manufacturing.
Great, Greg, congratulations, and thank you to all of you for being here today. I appreciate that. Okay, so Ohio has long been a leader in industries like manufacturing, financial services, and technology. But as the job market becomes more competitive, attracting and retaining top talent is more challenging than ever. So, Renee, we're going to start with you. And from your perspective, what gives Ohio a competitive edge in continuing to draw talent?
I think there are a couple things. First of all, I think our university systems are great here. We have so many wonderful universities in Ohio, great pools, also trade schools. And really, when you think about the company that I'm leading, right, we need that as much as we need college-educated people to do windshields every day. It takes someone to actually go out and do that work. And then I believe it's also the innovation coming to Ohio, which is just amazing. Really, when you think about Intel and Google and Amazon, those are things, that digital nation, that artificial intelligence focus, things that we really want to be known for. The other thing around Ohio, though, simply put, is, I've lived here for about 28 years. And it's really an environment, regardless of which part of Ohio you're in, that you can balance your life, you can have a reasonable cost of living, and that allows people to progress from smaller companies to larger companies and really have a wonderful career and talent pipeline that they can build in their organizations.
Great, thank you. And Greg, maybe from your perspective as one helping to create the talent, anything that you would add on that?
Yeah, I think it's just fantastic in Ohio, the growth, but the diversity of companies and the industries. And so if you're an engineer or a data scientist or whatever it may be, you have a lot of options. So you can move to a great city here, and then if you want to change jobs, you can change jobs and not have to move. And I think that's very attractive as the industry grows here more and more in Ohio. And then I think from the educational front, we have really fantastic institutions here, both public and private at the higher ed level. And if you're a young person and we want to kind of keep them here in Ohio, those educational benefits for companies are very attractive to them. And then as you think about, the 30-something, the 40-something, those educational benefits for their kids are very important. So if you can make those kind of benefits available to them, I think it'll help attract it back. And I always say, and maybe just because I've been around the country a bit, but there's an intangible here that really attracts people when you interview them, and it's the Ohio nice. And they come in, and it's just a really lovely place to be, and the people are warm and authentic and welcoming, and we really play off that hard at Miami.
Excellent. That's different than the Minneapolis nice, right?
Exactly. That's nice and cold there.
All right. So each of your companies and institutions, you have deep roots in Ohio, and the state's workforce plays a critical role in shaping your success. If you didn't have the workers, you would not be able to do that. So how has that talent pool influenced your business strategy? So how does being here impact your ability to attract and retain employees? So Kevin, maybe over to you on this one.
Thanks. I would start with, I would call it maybe the Midwest values add a lot to who we are and what the work ethic is. For us, we have a ton of people who have never worked before who come to work for us. Donato's has always hired 14 and 15-year-olds. A lot of restrictions around that. There's a lot of things they can't do, so it takes a lot of effort to hire those kinds of people. But what we found is if we can teach them what work ethic is and give them values and principles that our company is based on at a very young age, number one, they tend to stay with us. Number two, it stays with them. And that's super important. And that's one of the big things. The rest is we try to create a family. And that's how we keep other people long term. And part of keeping a family is allowing people to grow. So we've got to create opportunity inside our organization for them to grow and advance. And we spend a lot of time on really those two things is what are our principles and values and how can we teach those to everybody in our organization. And I think Kurt talked about nationwide, and we just heard a whole lot about Bath and Body Works. But culture and values are what keep people. They're the glue that hold companies together. So that's number one, a huge one. And number two, it is about that opportunity. How do we give them opportunity so they don't have to leave? And some people leave and some people come back. In my own personal journey, I spent 13 years with Donato's earlier in my career. And I left for almost 20 and came back to Donato's. And we welcome people back. You go out, live life, get your experiences, come back, and you too can have a tremendous career at Donato's.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Nick, we're going to get you in on this discussion here. So the workforce of today, not just looking for a paycheck. There's flexibility, like Kurt, you talked about. There's people want career growth and a sense of purpose in work. So how is your company evolving to meet these shifting expectations so that you can stay an employer of choice?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, about 2 years ago, going through the pandemic for us was like for anybody, it was very challenging. We were basically out of business for the better part of 12 to 14 months. We were in the business of bringing people together. Turns out that wasn't so productive during that period of time. And so coming out of that, our business started to scale again very quickly. And as we were kind of growing back to where we were before and beyond, quite frankly, one of the things we talked about is how do we double down on this momentum? And so we spent about 6 months researching and pulsing. We did a listening tour internally, which now we do that annually. But we not only did it within our own four walls, but we went out and we searched and we sought to understand a bunch of different things. We spent some time with Harvard Business Review people. We spent some time with human psychologists, just understanding where the workforce is going. 68% of our workforce is under the age of 40. So they're not quite 14 or 15, but they're anywhere from right out of college all the way up to that age. And so we said we have to kind of redefine who we are. And so what we realized in that research is, number one, you're right. They want to work for a purpose-driven organization. They want to work for an organization that's more than just a bottom line. They want to work for an organization that cares about their community and gives back. A lot of the things we heard Kurt saying earlier, which I thought were fantastic. Number two is they want experiential development. Said differently, they want a seat at the table. And so how do we enable that seat at the table in more of a inclusive way? And so we spent a lot of time thinking about it. And then number three, they want a paycheck. They want to make some money with what they're doing, were the three things we found. And so what we did is we went through and completely repositioned our benefits, the way we talk about them, the way we care about our team members, and we created this, what we call our holistic team member value proposition. We do a lot of things for our team members across all our different sports properties, whether it's tickets to games, whether it's their core benefits, but then also all the other stuff that comes with it. And what we realized was we were doing a horrible job of internally packaging it up, branding it, and then messaging it back to our group. Because we felt like we kind of sat back and we were doing a really good job with this, but it just wasn't hitting. And so we spent that. And then the third part, to kind of answer the second part of that research, which was the experiential development piece, we created training modules across the entire organization. We partnered with Novus Global, who has been a great partner of ours. And not only do we go through training at our senior leadership level, we go through training at what we call the heartbeat of our company, which is middle management. And we have an Aspire training program, which is people that want to get into leadership. And then we have what we call fundamentals training, which is basically like everything from the org chart of the organization through to our corporate values, or to our company values. And then the last part is, which we're blessed with this, is our chairman, Dan Gilbert, has what he calls his isms. Which are the 20 things that they're really kind of unique, nuanced sayings, but it's everything from launch and learn to we are the they. You'll see it when you believe it. And all of our team members go through that training. And so that kind of serves as the foundational piece of everything that we operate off of. But you're absolutely right. And I will say this, the other thing we committed to coming out of that 2 years ago is doing this every 2 years. And so we're about to embark on kind of our next phase of this renovation of our culture, if you will, because I think this world is evolving and consistently evolving, and we have to stay ahead of it.
I like your point about the continually evolving. It's just not a once and done. It has to keep, you've got to keep checking back in. So, well, on this same theme, Greg, I'm going to go back over to you on, as you're closer to maybe creating some of our future talent of today, what are your thoughts on maybe some of the things that Nick said there about how they're evolving those things and how some of folks coming out of school are thinking about workforce and what they want to do and the purpose piece of it?
Sure. I think what's interesting about this particular generation, you think you heard a lot about they want to be, the ability to move up and, have responsibility in the company. They certainly want to have flexibility. And it doesn't necessarily mean remote work full time. I think they want to have some flexibility to do some remote, but they do like to be in person. But I think one of the elements that I've seen, and I'm so glad that we did it as an institution, but this generation's just passion for sustainability is extraordinary. And we saw that in surveys about students choosing universities on whether or not they were a sustainable university. And so that purpose-driven and that value-driven piece is to be shown. How do you do it and how do you execute on it daily? And so our geothermal and our new solar panels and so forth on campus really do attract that. But we also found, in addition to the talent that we do bring in as employees, that younger generation, those 20-somethings and early 30-somethings, really resonated with it. So I think it's great to have wonderful value statements and then show and demonstrate how you practice that. And I think that does capture the minds of those people that are so passionate about purpose and mission of that institution.
Okay, very good. Okay, so we're working on hiring all of the people and all of this, these things. Renee, maybe you could share like some tips and tricks. How do we retain people? Is there any strategies you've employed that you would highlight?
I'd say there's a couple things. One, people need to feel like the organization they're joining you can grow in, but you also could have new capability join that'll shift the focus of the organization. So they need that vision. They need the inspiration of where could we go? How could we work differently? That new tools and things will be accessible to them so that they want to stay. The other piece is, what is the program you have designed to really broaden their capabilities over time as they grow in their career and not just stay in their vertical silo? Yeah, they might get promoted faster by staying in a certain function, but how do you build their depth over and across their career so that they feel like they really have the potential to do much more?
Great. And Kevin, maybe you want to, any tips and tricks from you?
Tips and tricks, kind of, maybe not, but this generation, the current generation, gets a lot of flack, but I would call it the why generation more than, not the letter Y, but the word why. And the word why, I think for some of us, what was, you told us what to do and we did it, and this generation wants to know why are we doing this. And so we have to reflect that in everything we do. So when we're running a sales promotion or we're have an initiative inside the company, the what is not nearly as important as the why. And so, I challenge all of us as leaders to think about that with our teams, is make sure that why is explicitly clear in everything that we do every day. And then the other part is true is, everybody wants a career path and development. Right now, people really want to know that you mean it. And hey, do your job and you'll get promoted is not good enough. Show me the path, give me the skills, introduce me to new things. And so we have to be super conscious about how we engage our associates and make sure that they see a path for them. And that deliberate engagement with them is going to help a lot. So just really summarizing the why do you want me to do it, and let me see how that ties back into sustainability or purpose or values, and then also show me what's in it for me over the long term and invest in me. And you do those things, you're going to go a long way towards retention.
I like that word deliberate that you used. I think that, that's great. Okay, so Nick, we're going to go back to you here. And this is the part where I'm not allowed to do a presentation without saying Gen AI. So as industries evolve, we need skills to stay competitive, and those skills are changing. So now we need Gen AI skills. How do you balance reskilling and upskilling of your current workforce versus bringing in new talent?
Yeah, look, I think we went through and kind of in a parallel path to the process we were just discussing. We went through a process, and we're still going through it, which we call sustainability planning. And it's not sustainability that you're talking about. We do some of that too, but it's sustainability planning rebranded as what a lot of people would call succession planning. And so for that, the reason why we changed the word is because what I found out within our group was, because we have a fairly, we have a younger group of senior leaders, they still have a lot of runway left in their careers. They were kind of getting nervous about planning for things that they'd be thinking about replacing themselves, and they quite frankly weren't doing a very good job at it. And so we kind of repositioned it, and in that we started infusing things like AI. And I agree with a lot of the things that have been said earlier. I think that is rocket fuel, or however it was characterized earlier, rocket fuel. It is so additive to what we're doing. We built an app in-house that measures all of our fan insights, and I get them real time in the game, and then it spits out AI-generated insights, whether it's, hey, we're low on hot dogs on this stand, or we need more beer over here. It's kind of funny stuff when you really look at it, but it's very helpful for us, and it's meaningful to our business. And so I think the data is all of our oil at the end of the day. It is the more we can mine data, the more we can live in data, and not that it has to drive every decision. That's ultimately why we all have opportunities to lead these wonderful organizations in this room. But it absolutely makes us faster, it makes us better, it makes us more efficient, and we need to be embracing it. We have, and we're not a large company, we're about 600 total team members full-time and about 2,000 part-time. We have 4 full-time AI developers on staff. I think we're probably the largest in the NBA at that, if we're not the largest, one of the top 2 or 3, simply because it's speed to outcome, for us. And that has to be something that we're all thinking about embracing and looking forward to, quite frankly.
Okay, Renee?
Yeah, I like a lot of the things that Nick just said. I think the data is king, right? When you look at this to begin with, it's the baseline. But I think there's also something about infusing new talent that has capability you don't currently possess versus just trying to pull your team forward to give them the oxygen to really be able to move much faster and also be able to understand the business. Because the newer person coming in that may have the talent in AI that can help your team move faster and leap will not understand the industry you're in potentially as well. And so how do you marry them together and really bring the best back to life? And that really gives you progress. And that's kind of that combustion moment where you realize now we're on to something.
Yeah, I like that. You need both. Mm-hmm. Right? Absolutely. Okay, Kevin, we're going to go over to you. So nobody builds a strong workforce alone. Partnerships, whether that be with educational institutions, trade schools, other organizations, need to be part of that. So do you have any collaborations that have been valuable to you as you've tried to build your workforce that you would highlight?
So I would start with, I mentioned it earlier, the 14 and 15-year-olds starting young and getting people in there. Jane Grody, one of our owners, has been instrumental in raising money on the South End with the Reeb Avenue Center, and there are tons of partnerships we utilize down there. And given the workforce that we need in our restaurants, we're also a second chance employer, and that has been really meaningful. We give people meaning and purpose to their lives, and they are incredibly loyal to us because it's very, very difficult for them to get a job after making a mistake in their lives. So those things kind of at the lower or the entry level in our organization have been huge. And then Ohio has fantastic universities and schools and being involved and around. In Columbus, certainly where the bulk of our company restaurants are, Ohio State has been a great partner. But it's how do we take advantage of this educated culture that we have here that I think have been instrumental for us.
Great. When Rodney was up here showing us water beads and things, he talked about being closer to private and public universities in Ohio. So, Greg, what are your thoughts there on partnerships between the universities and the business community?
Sure. So we do different partnerships. We have a manufacturing effort where we have a cluster of companies, right now 30, that work with us, and they co-train, and you don't know if the company's in there versus the professor versus the students, because it's all mixed together. So there's that model that we're after. And I think an element for companies when you're thinking about workforce, we redid our career services, and there's always that effort to, when you're a rising senior, to get that killer internship, so to speak, to go to that big company. Well, we wanted to start getting students to internships. So we started working more with companies to take our students as rising sophomores or rising juniors to get them and try them out and so forth. And so if you as a company can start early and get them to stick with you, you'll have that stickiness factor when you want to recruit them for the full-time job after they graduate. And then just a few tips on that with the companies and what I've heard from students. First, some are now giving them a little project and a consulting fee after they leave in the summer just to keep them close. It's a great idea, and I can tell you it works, firsthand experience. And I think the second thing is what we hear from students are the little things that companies can do. One, I had a dinner at the CEO's house, and they were so cool, that kind of stuff. They had leadership lunches where the VPs on Fridays would come in and talk to them. They had a great experience in Cleveland. They went to the Guardians game and the museum, and they had that city experience, not just the company experience. And so I think those small things can play a big role if you want to try to capture these students. You put that time and effort into them on the internships, keep them for a couple of years. You can test drive them, but then keep them close to you, because just like their iPhone, they won't go away from it, and they're going to use your brand and go back to you if you follow that kind of strategy of engaging them in a way that's really meaningful to them.
Great.
Well, one thing I forgot,
Yes.
and I really meant to say this, is Ohio has these organizations that other states just don't have. Jobs Ohio is a great example, and engaging them in what your business needs and talking to them about the resources that things like Jobs Ohio have created. And these are back to those, maybe I'm going to use the word private-public partnership instead of the other way around, that are fantastic for us. And the second part is policy. And policy is huge for an organization that has a lot of lower wage employees. The benefits cliff is a real issue. There are people who want to work, they want to be self-sustaining, but as they start going towards 40 hours a week, really it's at about 30 hours a week, they cross that benefit cliff and they lose so much that they have to not work. But they don't want to do that. So that's a real issue, and I just wanted to mention it from a policy perspective because it's so important to all of us. And us as business leaders, you look, and I think social programs get a bad name because we think people don't want to work. Our experience is just 100% the opposite, is we have people who want to work, but they need help in that cliff because it's a real issue and a real challenge.
And I thank Donato's for your work in trying to help us solve that in the state. So kudos to you on that. Okay, we are out of time, which means, Pat is coming up. I'm just going to give these folks one last word. We're going to start down there with Greg.
Oh, no.
Tell me one thing that you're optimistic about as it pertains to workforce in Ohio.
Do you remember the movie The Graduate? And young Benjamin gets home and he gets advice from his dad's friend. What was that advice? Plastics. Well, my excitement is quantum computing.
I think what gives it for me is growth and opportunity in Ohio, and growth and opportunity are going to attract the best and the brightest, and that's what we have to look forward to in Ohio.
Yeah, I would just say I think the state of Ohio, we have world-class assets without the world-class ego, and I think our whole approach should be how do we make sure that we are spreading that every single day to attract people to the heartbeat of this country.
And for me, it's people will fuel the future, right? This is how we're going to grow. So I know none of us did well at the one word, but we did try.
Okay, well, I'm just
That's why
gonna
we're leaders.
I'm going to steal a word from Rodney again. Momentum. We've got great momentum here in Ohio, especially as it relates to our workforce. So thank you all for your time today, and thank you to the panel. And back over to Pat.